There comes a moment in a woman's life when something inside her begins to shift. It is not dramatic. It does not arrive with an announcement. Most of the time, no one else even notices. But quietly, something begins to change. The routines that once felt normal begin to feel restrictive. The expectations she once accepted without question begin to feel strangely small. The life she once believed she was meant to live begins to feel like a role she has outgrown. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries within them a deeper self waiting to be discovered. He called the journey toward that deeper self-individuation. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming who you truly are beneath the roles you have learned to play. And for many women, the first sign that individuation has begun is a growing discomfort with mediocrity. Not mediocrity in the sense of failure, but mediocrity in the sense of living below one's true potential. Because mediocrity is rarely loud. Often it is quiet, comfortable, predictable. It is the life that appears acceptable on the surface. But something inside the psyche knows when it has settled for less than it was meant to become. Jung believed that much of human life is spent operating through what he called the persona. The persona is the mask we wear in order to function in society. It is the version of ourselves that fits expectations. Polite, agreeable, predictable. The persona is not inherently bad. In fact, it allows us to cooperate with the world around us. But problems arise when a person becomes so identified with their persona that they forget the deeper self behind it. For many women, this mask is shaped by subtle social messages received over many years. Be pleasant, be accommodating. Do not be too ambitious. Do not disrupt the harmony. Do not ask for too much. And slowly, without realizing it, many women begin shaping their lives around these expectations. But the psyche has a way of resisting limitation. Eventually, something deeper begins to stir. A restlessness, a quiet sense that life could be larger than the version currently being lived. And this is often the beginning of what Jung described as the call to individuation. But answering that call requires confronting something many people avoid. The shadow. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we have rejected or hidden. Traits that were discouraged. Desires that felt unacceptable. Strengths that made others uncomfortable. For women, the shadow often contains qualities that society has historically discouraged. Assertiveness, ambition, authority, independence, even anger. These qualities are not inherently negative, but when they are suppressed, they move into the unconscious. And what is unconscious does not disappear. It simply waits. When a woman begins the process of individuation, she often discovers that her shadow contains enormous energy. Energy that was once hidden in order to maintain approval. But integrating the shadow does not make someone harsh or selfish. Instead, it makes them whole. And this is where something fascinating begins to happen. Because as a woman becomes more self-aware, she begins to notice something Jung called projection. Projection occurs when people unconsciously attribute their own hidden traits to others. For example, someone who fears their own ambition may criticize ambition in someone else. Someone who suppresses their independence may feel threatened by a woman who expresses it openly. This is why women who begin to step beyond mediocrity sometimes encounter resistance. Not because they have done anything wrong, but because their growth quietly reflects what others have not yet faced within themselves. Understanding projection can be incredibly liberating, because it helps a woman realize that not every criticism she encounters is truly about her. Often, it reveals more about the unconscious struggles of the person delivering it. At the same time, another important transformation begins to take place. Jung believed that women carry within them an inner psychological force he called the animus. The animus represents qualities such as inner authority, clarity of thought, and the ability to act with conviction. When the animus is undeveloped, a woman may rely heavily on outside approval or direction. But as it becomes integrated, she develops a stronger inner compass. She becomes more confident in her decisions, more willing to think independently, more capable of standing firmly in her own perspective. This is one of the psychological shifts that often allows a woman to break free from mediocrity, because she no longer looks outward for permission to grow. She begins listening inward, and as this transformation unfolds, deeper patterns begin to reveal themselves. Jung believed that human lives are often shaped by unconscious archetypes. Archetypes are universal patterns that exist within the collective unconscious. They shape how we see ourselves and how we move through the world. For many women, one of the most powerful archetypal shifts occurs when they move from the role of the pleaser or the caretaker into the archetype of the sovereign woman, the woman who governs her own life, the woman who recognizes her worth, the woman who no longer abandons herself in order to maintain harmony with everyone else. This transformation is not about rejecting others. It is about no longer rejecting oneself. And when this shift occurs, something profound begins to emerge. Clarity. The woman who escapes mediocrity becomes more selective with her time, more protective of her energy, more aware of what truly matters. She may find herself walking paths that others do not fully understand, but Jung believed that this is often part of the individuation process. Because the ultimate goal of individuation is not approval. It is integration. The integration of the conscious and unconscious mind. The integration of strengths once hidden in the shadow. The integration of the many parts of the psyche into what Jung called the self. The self represents the most complete expression of a human being. It is the center of psychological wholeness. When a woman moves closer to the self, something remarkable happens. She becomes less driven by fear, less concerned with roles that no longer reflect her nature, less willing to remain confined within expectations that suppress her potential. Instead, she begins living from a deeper place of alignment. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. But this privilege requires courage. The courage to question inherited patterns, the courage to confront the shadow, the courage to outgrow identities that once felt safe. Escaping mediocrity is not about becoming extraordinary in the eyes of the world. It is about refusing to abandon your own potential. It is about answering the quiet call within that says there is more to discover, more to become, more to express. And for the woman who follows that call, something extraordinary begins to unfold. She no longer lives as a reflection of expectations. She lives as an expression of her true self. And in doing so, she leaves mediocrity behind. If this video resonated with you, you're welcome to walk this path with us. Here we explore the deeper psychological patterns that shape human behavior, relationships, and personal transformation. Subscribe to continue exploring the sovereign path.